Hey, gang, out there in Progress Report land. This is us for the last Wednesday in June. By God, we're into summer.
Half over.
Half over. The solstice occurred. The days are already getting shorter, only by a tiny amount. That'll accelerate as time goes on. But here we are on this Wednesday, reaching out to our fellow citizens in Manchester, Hooksett and Auburn. And I'm delighted, as I always am, almost every Wednesday, to have Mike Farley here with me.
You're stuck with me through the summer.
What are we up to? 8 years of this stuff now? 8 years.
We're in our 8th year. We will, when we hit December, it'll complete the 8th year.
We got to have a damn party at that time, don't we?
I think if you're calling a party, I will attend.
I will attend. And we are very pleased to have with us Alderman Bill Berry, representing Manchester's West Side 9th Ward?
Ward 10.
Ward 10. Why do I get that wrong? Ward 10. And a great contributor to our city and our county and the state in so many ways, and we're really glad he's here. So we hope you'll participate with us. The number, as always, is 640-3091. We welcome participation all the time and urge you to be a part of this show. So, as those of you that have been following us since January 20th know, we have a new feature on this. It's not so new now. It's 6 months.
It's a regular feature.
It's a regular feature, not a new feature, a regular feature. It's called the POTUS Report on the Progress Report. And this is the brainchild and the inspiration of my good friend Mike Farley. What you got tonight?
You blow it up far larger than it is. But tonight, they say great minds think alike, and I noticed that you have the actual newspaper, which is showing what I'm going to talk about. The New York Times came out with
the New York Times Sunday Review section from last Sunday, the back page.
And what you're looking at on this back page is completely full with lies that have been told by our president since Inauguration Day. And they published some very interesting facts about this. They did a very extensive report, and I have a printout of that, and it extends 5 pages of tightly spaced, day-by-day statements, one day after another, statements by the president, which the New York Times is calling lies, and in the article they say they use that word advisedly. They mean it. These are facts that are known to be untrue. They're demonstrably false. I'm just going to pick and choose. January 26th, the president says, we've taken in tens of thousands of people. We know nothing about them. They can say they vet them. They didn't vet them. They have no papers. How can you vet somebody when you don't know anything about them and you have no papers? How do you vet them? You can't. And the Times points out vetting is a 2-year process, and so they consider that to be a lie. Let's go into February. February 6th, it's gotten to a point where it is not even being reported. In many cases, the very, very dishonest press doesn't want to report it, talking about terrorism. And the Times says it's been reported in detail, and I think anyone who's read the paper can say that. Point being that every single day of his presidency until March 1st, the president told an out-and-out lie in public. And since that time, he has told, public lies or falsehoods every single day until March 1st, the first 40 days of his presidency. And they make another point that sometimes his lies change with repetition, and they point out in talking about China stopping manipulating of its currency. On April 21st, he said they stopped from the time he took office. On April 29th, he said they stopped during the election. On April 30th, he said they stopped as soon as he got elected. On May 1st, he said they stopped when he started running. On May 4th, he said they stopped since he's been talking about currency manipulation. It doesn't matter to him. It doesn't matter. So this is a new thing. I think we can all say that every politician, present company excluded, has told a lie at one time.
There it is
or
again,
another.
in very small print. You may need your specs to see this. And we have a caller. Let's have a caller.
So anyway, we'll
guest.
take the call, but essentially that is this week's edition of the POTUS Report on the Progress Report.
And I have an agenda, but let's talk to our guest.
All right, let's take the call.
Hello, caller. Join us on the Progress Report. You're certainly welcome.
How you doing, John? You're live on the air.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, with all due respect,
You're talking about President Trump's wife. In my alma mater in 2015, West High School, there was a raid, and what's apparently a cover-up by Mayor Ted Gatzis during the height of an election. I think maybe that should be a focus of people. Now, with due respect,
You will see more. You will see
there was
more
a
about that
rape
on
of a
this.
girl.
You'll see more on this very
No,
show.
Okay, you go on, talk about Trump, but there's something that's very important going on in the city, and maybe you should address that.
We totally agree with you. In fact, if you stay tuned, we're going to be talking about that very topic on this show tonight.
John, you're ahead of us, but we're going to get there. Thank you for the call. That's a great segue to what you and I were talking about when we said,
Right.
could you join us tonight, which I'm delighted you were able to do. And I believe you have some more information. Just for the general background, if you haven't been seeing the Manchester Union Leader for the last few days, it turns out there was a serious sexual assault. I guess you probably should be call it a rape.
They're all serious, Bob.
They are all serious. That's a good point. At West High School, about 2 years ago, in a hallway, they had a resource officer in the school. Apparently, this was known to, the school leadership, the school district, and to the mayor, and yet nobody in Manchester, other than those within that circle, knew about it for about 2 years. And Bill, I believe you've got some new information on this.
Well, what happened, obviously, I didn't know about this until I read it in a newspaper, and it was,
And that was at the sentencing.
right, exactly.
And
what
by
was
the
just
way,
what
Bill-
was more recently in the newspaper.
Bill,
that he got
before you
sentenced
get
to 10
going,
to
let me
20
say
years.
that Bill Barry's not an alderman. He has a distinguished career as a law enforcement person. He's helped solve some cold crimes. He's had a distinguished career as a member of our law enforcement community. So go ahead.
Well, thank you, Bob. Back, especially when I was with the sheriff's office, I worked on a lot of fugitive cases, and what got to the top of the list, and while I was working, it was 17 years I was chasing down people that were wanted, and if anyone committed crimes against children or seniors, they would rise to the top of our list as far as going out and nabbing the bad guy.
Yep.
And or bad woman, whichever it be. In this case, what's troubling about this is, number one, I represent the West Side, not only me, but Alderman Gamache, Alderman Hirschman, and Alderman Lavasser and Alderman O'Neill, who are the two aldermen at large.
Yep.
So I think it's important that we should have, at the very least, we should have been notified about what transpired. Now, this thing happened on September 30th of 2015.
Almost 2 years ago.
Right, and it was a brutal attack on a 14-year-old girl. And before I even get started, my heart goes out to her, and my heart goes out to her family that had to go through this whole process.
Indeed.
And for her to get attacked like that in some place that she felt safe. And every student that goes
And
into our
has a
schools
right to
should
feel
feel safe.
Absolutely.
It's just such an unfortunate thing. In my opinion, it should never have happened. It never should have happened. Unfortunately, there should have been procedures that should have taken place prior to that would have stopped it. Now, would it have stopped this bad guy from doing what he did? And when you're in law enforcement for so long, I can assure you that most criminals, not all, but most criminals that commit a crime don't get caught the first time. And I'm not saying that this guy has done this before, but one of the biggest concerns that I had after I read it in the paper and not being notified was the fact that the public, the parents of the students at West High School, should have been notified immediately. And I know it's a delicate situation, and I know at that time they were both considered juveniles. Obviously, the 14 is definitely a
And
juvenile.
I suppose there's the presumption of innocence for whatever that
Well, yeah,
maybe.
but still, I don't buy that part of it, because the bad guy was 17 years old. Not only did he commits a crime, and now we can say committed, it's not alleged anymore because he was sentenced to 10 to 20 years, but he commits a crime on school grounds. He confessed to it and was arrested the very same day that this occurred.
That
Okay.
all happened in one day?
Yeah, Manchester PD, Manchester Police did a fantastic job. I had some questions because I wanted to know, ironically, this guy, the bad guy was 17 years old at the time of the rape, and in New Hampshire, 17 was considered an adult. Up until July 1st of 2015, it turned to 18. So the state legislature moved being considered an adult from 17 to 18, and it started in July 1st of 2015. But, so go back to September 30th, in April of 2016, 7 months after the rape occurred, he was certified as an adult. 3 months after that, he was indicted by the Hillsborough County Grand Jury. For us, at the very least, we should have been notified as aldermen that deal with the West High School. I'm very, very upset that we weren't notified. September 30th was a Wednesday. The following week, October 6th, we had a full board meeting with the mayor and a full board of aldermen. We had a meeting. We should have been, even if it was in non-public, even if it was an executive session, we should have been told, whether it be just a few aldermen or all the aldermen. I say all the aldermen should have been notified. And if you want to handle it behind closed doors, that's fine. I can understand, again, it's a delicate situation. We've got a victim that's going through a lot at that time, the victim's family and so on. But I think that we should have been notified. We should have come up with some type of plan to make sure that, God forbid, if this guy didn't do it to someone else prior to this young lady, and
Was this guy, who was at this point 17 years old, and at that point not quite being categorized as an adult, right?
right?
If that guy was in that situation, was there any requirement that his identity be protected, or, why is that part of the problem?
Yeah, well, yes. Then, but again, you don't have to identify the victim or the alleged perpetrator in this case. You don't have to identify him. You could come out with some, and again, you've got to meet and come together with some type of plan to advise the media, or at least advise the parents of the students that go to West High School, that there was a major incident that happened. It was a sexual assault.
And that never happened.
Never happened.
For 2 years.
For 2 years.
It should have happened within
and
24 hours.
like I said, if I don't know who this guy is. I don't know from the hole in the wall. If he did it to someone else, and that poor girl was scared to come forward, maybe then she would have come forward. Maybe she would have come out and said, you know what? Her parents could have talked to her, said, "Hey, do you know anything about this? Do you know who this guy is?"
So why was this not made known to the public so people could have taken protective measures for their kids that may be attending West High School?
I don't know. But you know what's even more troubling, from what I understand, and I sent an email out to the police department, and I had some questions. One of the questions I had was when they finally closed that hallway. Okay? Mm-hmm. I still haven't gotten, I still don't know the exact time that they closed the hallway, but what I did find out is the school resource officer at West High School, prior to this rape, had confronted the administration about closing that hallway.
So he was on the ball in regard to this.
Absolutely.
That's what you
Absolutely. Manchester Police did to get a confession and to make an arrest the very same day, somewhat unheard
Pretty
of.
good police work.
Absolutely. And they did an outstanding job, and I really, really commend them on a job well done.
I want to jump in here. The administration, the principal, every school has a principal. The principal found out about this on that day. We have to assume. We have to assume that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, there's a whole bunch of other students that are going to that school that very day and that are going to come back the following morning.
Right.
A whole bunch of those kids. And there's a condition in that school that the principal, you've just told us, has been made aware of, that may be an unsafe condition by the person whose responsibility it is to ensure safety in the school resource officer, a trained police officer.
I don't want to single out the principal.
I don't want to single out anybody
because
either.
I don't know who the administration was that the school resource officer confronted.
At least one person is what I'm saying. Now, what I'm trying to figure out, I'm looking at this as a parent. And the fact that the parents were not notified, I would be absolutely beside myself if something like this happened in my kid's school and I wasn't notified within 24 hours. I don't care who it was. You don't have to tell me that. You don't even have to tell me what it was.
Right.
But there was a public safety issue that had not been addressed.
Absolutely.
And that very fact, I need to make the decision, am I sending my kid back there, or do I need to find out if this school is safe? I have a right to go in and ask questions unless I don't know about it.
Yeah.
So that's what really outrages me. And I think we're going to get deeper into it when we get to the other side of our break. But there are certain very high-ranking officials in the city of Manchester that did know about it and were in that room at the next aldermanic meeting, and apparently didn't say a word.
Right, and that's what's troubling. I mean, for us not to be notified, and for it, I mean, that is a major, major offense.
I quite frankly think the parents should have been notified before the alderman, to be honest with you.
It almost makes me.
I mean,
it
I
almost made
understand
me
why you
sick.
want to know, but I
Yeah.
mean, listen, the parents have a right to know
Right.
a heck of a long time before the aldermen do.
Absolutely, and I received a couple. I received a couple of phone calls the day after the article was in the paper, and one lady absolutely blasted me. I couldn't even get a word in until she calmed down, and I said, ma'am, I said, I've got to let you know. I said, do you know when I knew about this? And because she was, saying, you should have notified us. And I had a daughter that go to the West High School, and God forbid if she was the one that was assaulted and all. And I said, do you know when I found out about this? She goes, when? I said, yesterday when I read it in the paper like you. And she calmed down and she said, oh, I apologize. I thought, people knew about this and they just didn't say anything.
But that reflects the public expectation.
Absolutely.
The public expectation is that when something like this happens, everybody's going to know about it.
Right, right.
And at the very least, the alderman should know about it. So we can establish right here, before we go to our break, that it is an absolute public expectation that this word
Yeah.
should have been spread at that time.
Yeah, and real quickly, but within 10 months, you had a lot of things happen. One, the rape occurred. Two, the guy confessed and was arrested.
Arrest.
7 months later,
Certification.
he got certified as an adult. 3 months after that, he was indicted by the Hillsborough County Grand Jury. So within 10 months, there's a lot of stuff that happened. At the very least, come out in 10 months after he was indicted or after he was certified as an adult and come clean and say, hey, we had a problem at West High School and we need to make it public now.
Well, I would argue, where have you been all this time?
Well, it
even
should
if
have
they
been.
did
It
that,
should have
you
been.
know?
It should have been the day after it happened, especially when an arrest was made. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not interrupting and you're not interfering with the police doing their job. They already did their
good
job.
point, good
They already
point.
did their job.
Yeah.
October 1st, the day after. Someone should have come out. The school board, the school administration, the mayor should have come out and put their heads together and said, this is how we're going to handle this, and this is how we're going to present it. We're going to send out a letter immediately to the parents to let them know that a sexual assault occurred in our school, and an arrest was made, and
These are the steps we're taking.
and the other children are safe.
Yeah. That's important.
You don't have to go into much detail. You don't have to name names, and even if there were juveniles involved, deal with it. Because guess what? This guy may have done it to someone else.
No, you make a very good point. And a lot of times these things aren't reported. And we've seen how many news stories, Bob, recently where, something does get reported and all of a sudden other victims start to come out. And
Absolutely.
they get emboldened.
We see it all the time.
It happens.
Yeah, it really does.
Wow.
So, and close on the hallway, I mean, you're in high school, you're in school. You're not supposed to smoke in the schools. And if they were using that hallway, even if it was just to smoke cigarettes or whatever they were doing in those hallways, or in that specific hallway, close it down.
Well, if you can't have out-of-control places in your
Right,
school, right?
in your
It's got to be
schools.
under control, wall to wall.
Just by going in there to smoke is violating school policy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
So do you think the resource officer has some responsibility here or not?
I think the school resource officer did exactly what they should have done and confronted the school administration about closing that hallway.
Yeah.
So we
it's
can
right
continue this. Let's take a quick break.
Let's take a quick
regroup,
break.
because I want to
We'll
dig deeper into
Be right
this.
back, folks, and call us at, as John just did, at 640-3091. We're on for the progress report for this Wednesday, the last Wednesday in June, and we'll be back real soon with Alderman Bill Berry, talk about other issues facing our city as well as this one. So this is the progress report for the last Wednesday in June, June 28th to be exact. And we are very pleased to have with us tonight Alderman Bill Berry. And we've been talking, prodded by our call from John, about the distressing fact that sexual assault, it was a rape, happened at West High School in Manchester almost 2 years ago in September 2015, and that the public got no notice of this until
The other day.
the other day in the papers when it
The
surfaced.
whole process had run through.
And,
There had been an arrest, there
How
had been a
can, how
certification,
can
an
this be
indictment, a
that such a
trial.
serious crime
we're
could
at
have been
sentencing.
committed, which would have been concern to all the families of students that were attending West High School? And that's what we're talking about. So, Bill, how did it happen that this did not become known to the public? I mean,
You know,
you got any explanation for that?
it's funny because I did see the original emails. One was on September 30th from, I believe, Tracy Mancuso through Dave Ryan through Tracy Mancuso sent out an email advising the school board and the mayor that there was a sexual assault that took place at West High School.
What day did that go out?
September 30th, the day of. And
Now,
it was
that's
like-
interesting because the newspaper reported that when asked, Mayor Gatsa said he had no idea that it had taken place.
Yeah, it was the very same day of the rape.
And this was in the article that just came out
Yeah.
in the paper recently.
Yeah. Well, see, he can speak for himself, I guess. But
Oh, no, I'm just
yeah.
pointing it out. I mean, folks, you read the article, you know, I mean, that's what they reported. The chief of police also countered that assertion by saying he had notified the mayor on more than one occasion.
Yeah. And I did speak with the chief, and the chief did reiterate the fact that he did speak to the mayor on a couple of occasions and specifically told him how brutal the attack was on this young girl. And which
September 30th, when are the municipal elections? They're held in September and November.
Well, primaries are, but the elections will be held in November. I guess.
I don't know.
But I'm just saying, they're held in the odd years, municipal
Right,
elections.
yeah.
So September 30th of 2015, we're
And
right
then November.
Right in the middle, right in the
of our
middle of a
municipal
very,
elections.
And then
a
the
very
first-
I don't
narrow
know.
window
November.
between primaries and
I'm
general.
sure that was just a coincidence.
Yeah, well, the first Tuesday of November would have been the general election. But to follow up with the September 30th, John Avard, who's a school board member from Ward 10, actually sent out replied back to that September 30th, asking if if an adult was involved or was it juveniles, and he was told that it was two juveniles. All right, so there was two emails sent out, one on September 30th advising everyone of, not everyone, but the school board members and the mayor that a rape took place, or sexual assault, in Dave Ryan's words. And I'll tell you, honestly, when the two words sexual assault comes out, that's serious. All right, there's no other way that you can take that. You can't downplay sexual assault. Sexual
as I said
assault
earlier, they're
is
all-
sexual
they're all
assault.
serious.
And in this case, it was a lot. There's different versions of sexual assault. You've got aggravated felonious sexual assault. You've got felonious sexual assault, and then you have sexual assault. Every single one of them is unprivileged contact with someone. All right, so whether someone's sexually assaulted, whether it's on the outside of their clothing or not, it's still a sexual assault. If that person, no means no, and if you cause unprivileged contact to someone, especially if you touch their sexual parts, it's considered sexual assault. So it's important that. It should have been handled right away.
I don't think the
handled
school
differently.
board should be dealing in degrees when a serious incident, whether it's something like this, another type of crime, or a natural disaster, a gas leak, any kind of serious incident that requires official response, in this case, police.
Right.
I think the parents who are sending their children and entrusting their children to that administration in that building have every single right to know, and there's a duty and obligation to disclose that information.
And not only that, I can understand where Dave Ryan or the school the school administration sent out and labeled it sexual assault. I can understand that because it was early. It was the early stages. But as soon as they found out an arrest was made and that the guy confessed to it, they needed to follow up with the police and sit down with the police chief. And apparently he said, I'm here, if you want to, go over this, sit down with the police chief and go over everything, and then come up with a plan of how to release it to the parents of the kids at West High School. You had to do that right away.
Yeah.
Timing is everything. And like I said, God
Well, there
forbid
should
if
be
this
a
guy did it to
notification.
someone else.
There should be a notification protocol that kind of runs on autopilot. The question being, what's the wording? You sit down and you develop the wording of it. But I mean,
They've done it before. I mean, I got notified when West High School had an evacuation because of an odor in the school. I got notified when a kid was running around the school, not running around, but he went into school and had a pellet gun, and
I remember that
it
one.
was reported in the paper.
and I think it was more of an innocent thing where the kid went in there. He was a graduate of West High School. He went in to talk to one of his old teachers, but unfortunately he was seen with a gun, and so it caused an alarm. And they did exactly the exact protocol. They did. They had a lockdown at the high school, and the police went in there and they handled it, and they handled it professionally.
So, Bill, what made this one different? Do you think? Do you have any inkling as to where we've just given a half dozen examples of others like situations, incidents where you've been notified, the public's been notified, corrective action's been taken. What happened in this one? I mean, was this kid,
Or why didn't it happen?
was this kid's family connected? You know what I mean?
I don't know that. I can assure you that no matter how connected, if someone was connected, it wouldn't stop the police. The police.
I'm not trying to imply
right.
that.
I understand that.
And I'm speculating. I have
But,
no reason. I probably shouldn't have done that. But I'm trying to figure. We have these protocols. They've worked in the past. It really fell down this time, and I'm trying to figure out if we can. Why did it happen?
Well, I don't know. And you know what? The lack of communication between everyone, the school board, the mayor's office, it didn't make any sense to me. There was only 2 emails, September 30th, October 1st, and that was it. And then comes June of 2017, where we read in the paper that the guy got found guilty and was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in the Hampshire
Which
State
is
Prison.
small
happened in
spell.
between?
I mean, 10 to 20, that's a serious felony.
Yeah. I would have thought, I would honestly think that it was such a major incident at our schools, at one of our schools, that someone should have stayed on top of it. September 30th, October 1st, October 2nd, October 3rd, all the way down the line.
Do you know if the victim received any assistance from the school?
I
assume
don't.
that they received victim assistance through the court system, which most victims do until that
Right,
funding gets taken.
right.
But do you know? I mean, I would think that the school would have some kind of obligation to provide some assistance to her.
Well, I'll tell you, I know personally the victim witness advocates at the Hillsborough County Attorney's Office. Awesome. They do an awesome
I
job.
couldn't agree more.
So I would be willing to bet that they were hands-on from the get-go through the Manchester Police Department. I
Right,
can
but
guarantee that.
My question has to do with the school
The
department.
school, I
that
don't-
we
I
seem to
don't
see
know.
that's
So
what
you-
And that could be tough. You're dealing with a victim, and they shouldn't even tell me. They shouldn't even tell me what their communication was with
Fair
the
enough.
victim.
Fair
I wouldn't even want to dig into that.
We have a call.
Sandy, you're live on the progress report. Go right ahead.
Happy to have you join us, Sandy. Go right ahead.
Hi, Bob and Mr. Barry
Hi.
and Mike. When I was on the school board, that was many years ago, but I left in 2003, but we had a student conduct committee, which I was on for many years. And, the parents, the children, and anybody that did anything that was wrong, and your principal came into us. This was a non-public session now. This
Right.
was not for the public, but it was a non-public session. And I can remember, different incidences, like one kid came in with a gun in his bag, and the bullet went off, the gun went off because he threw it in the ground, and good thing it didn't hit somebody else. I don't even remember what school that was, but we had all kinds of incidences from 9 years old up, and what we recommended, like, for instance, what we recommended, but it was up to the police to keep forward it and everything. I don't believe we ever had this problem of any type of a rape or anything like that. There was harassment, there was some different
Yeah.
things.
I think you're right. I think you're right, Sandy.
Guns and knives.
Yeah.
But I wondered if the school committee still has a student conduct committee.
They do.
And you know, where they have the resource officers, we didn't have those back then.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah, and they
to
need them
me-
now.
But this is what they used to tell us now. The police used to tell us that if they were 17 or under, this would have to go into the file, and no one could see that file. So I'm wondering if something had to do with that, but this is very bad and very, you know, I can't believe this is what happened in this case.
No,
Right.
you
I
make-
can see it if other.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you
Well-
make some good points, Sandy, and why don't we have Alderman Barry try to address them?
Yeah.
Thanks for the call.
Sandy.
Yeah, because you know, some of the incidences were very small.
Right.
They bought in a little knife. The Boy Scouts bought in little knives or something or whatever. And I mean, we didn't advocate that they should go to YDC because they bought in a little knife from the Boy Scouts. Because I remember going through many cases with the different principals.
Yep.
When we had these student conduct committee meetings, and they were in on-session after our meetings, and then, but I remember being told that 17 and under, they would be put into a file, and that was kind of like it was wiped out, like sort of like was, unless they were over the age.
Yep,
that
we get your point,
you
Sandy.
couldn't prosecute them. I'm not sure with the police, but that's that. I wonder if they still do that.
Thanks for the call, Sandy.
And,
We'll let Bill answer.
This case is very, very, very serious.
Okay,
and,
Sandy, we got to let you go.
can't imagine-
We're running out of time. We're going to let you go.
I can't imagine
Thank
it
you.
not going-
Sorry,
Yeah,
she was
Sandy,
repeating herself.
I understand the school does have, the school board does have a code of conduct committee, and rightfully so, because they have to deal with a lot of issues, and a lot of them, anyone that's in the schools, specifically if they're under 18 years of age, because now 18 is considered an adult. It was 17 for a short while. But anyways, they deal with a lot of issues that aren't as severe as this one was. This was in my opinion, a very, very serious offense that happened in one of our schools. I don't think I would very much doubt that would even reach the code of conduct. I think by him getting arrested, probably dealt with it. They bypassed the code of conduct because it was such a heinous crime that they needed to deal with it immediately. And
they did.
And they did.
You know, but she
They did
makes a good
job.
point. Had it been referred to the conduct committee, even on paper, at least there would have been a body of the school board that had it on its agenda. And you know what I mean? Because it seems like these emails went out, there was a little back and forth, and maybe everyone assumed someone else was keeping an eye on. I don't know.
See,
I'm really
I
trying to
thought
figure
that
out.
also. I thought that also says, well, maybe certain people thought that other people were going to take the bull by the horns and deal with it. You can't. Unfortunately, you've got to deal with it. You've got to. The people up at the top should have dealt with this, and they should have dealt with it swiftly.
Yeah. Maybe there were just too many stools and it fell between them. I don't know. We have another call. Let's try
Well,
that.
this topic certainly is getting a lot of attention. George, you're live on the progress report.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi. Go right ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air. Go right ahead.
I'm just looking at this West thing, and I think this is going to be very costly for the city.
I think it's right.
Good
I
point.
think the more people dig, I think they're going to find that, as Gerard mentioned, this hallway was well known to everybody. In fact, so well known that I think you're going to find, and if somebody can dig, they can find it, that administration proposed doing something. However, on the list of priorities, this was pushed off because of a budgetary limitation. And the mayor can spin it any way he wants. The schools weren't funded properly, and they had to make some choices. And unfortunately, this is one of the choices that they made, and I think it's going to come around and bite us in the ass.
Well, you make a very good point.
George, I think I agree with you 100%. It is going to be costly, but what's even more costly is the damage it's done to this young lady.
Yeah.
That's what's more
Oh,
costly.
sure.
Money is not even it's material. But this poor girl and her family, what they had to go through because of something that should have been handled. What the heck would the cost be to change locks? Or to put a lock on the
Well,
doors to
Well, I mean, you
stop
look
the
at-
access.
You look at our schools in general. We've heard about these Columbine locks and whatnot. The schools do not have Columbine locks yet. I mean, I've heard Freeman and Gerard, I've heard them spouting off about us getting Columbine locks for our students. Yet, Columbine was how many years ago, and we're still with the old door lock system.
Well, I can tell.
Schools with
I can tell you in Auburn, we just did a training drill over in Auburn at the Auburn Village School, which goes up to eighth grade, and every door in that school has the Columbine locks. But again, I know it's not
And
Manchester.
most
It's a small,
schools-
it's a
most
small
schools
school.
that invest money into their school systems, or cities that invest in their school systems, have those. They see it as a security, they see it as a safety measure for students, and they take those precautionary measures.
Right.
For us, we look at it and say, "Oh, sorry, costs too much. We'll pass." And that seems to be the mantra
Yeah.
with Manchester. It
Well-
costs too much money. Let's, find something else.
Let's
Thanks for the call, George. You make some very good points.
but I'm thinking, and maybe I shouldn't say it, but I will. This was a horrible incident, badly handled. Maybe the thing just fell between too many chiefs and stirring the pot, that we did not get the notification we should have had. I think Bill's right, not so much for the public, but for the parents of kids that were depending to send their kids
Right.
to West High School and expect them to be safe and protected in that environment. But it's a one incident in the entire Manchester district school system 2 years ago.
Bob, it's one incident indicative of failings that I think George really highlighted.
Right.
It
One
is-
incident that shouldn't
but
have
there's
happened.
a lot of
It
other
shouldn't have
failings that maybe don't rise to this
But,
level, but
if-
every
if-
child is getting nibbled away, and their educational experience, which is
Well,
the only
I-
one they're going to get,
I know,
is
but
getting cheesed on.
We don't have
by
a
this
pattern
budget.
of practice here, though. I don't want to condemn our entire school system.
No,
And
no.
by the way,
We have a pattern of practice of underfunding education in the
well,
city.
we
I mean,
certainly do.
absolutely.
But whether
I
that
argue
had
that point.
anything to do with this or not, I don't know. But I know that the gentleman that was the principal of West High School, from the time I think Bedford left that high school, under-resourced, both in the student population and other characters, was a fine gentleman and did a wonderful job in that school. And I just don't want to see all that thrown away because of this grievous, horrible incident that should not have happened and was not handled well.
Yeah.
Although apparently very well by law enforcement,
Right.
as Bill was
But I
saying.
We can learn
and I
from
agree with you, Bob. Bad things are going to happen. They're going to happen every single day of our lives. Somewhere, somehow, someone's going to find a way to do something evil. All right.
True.
And in this case, this guy found a victim, and he abused that victim. And unfortunately, no one was there to help her. Do I blame the school for it? No, I don't. But we did. It's our responsibility, not only as a school, with our schools and the school administration and the staff, and even all of the elected officials, even myself. It's our job, and it's our responsibility to make sure that our children are safe and protected throughout our
Indeed.
city.
No question about that. You're absolutely right, Bill. Let's take our next break. This will be our final break, folks. And we've had an interesting and, I think, informative discussion of this horrible incident west almost 2 years ago. But I think maybe when we come back, we ought to turn to some other big issues on which Bill is also very much involved as an alderman in the city, including the now talk that we're going to have to cut down on our fire protection services in the city. We'd like to talk about that when we come back, and whatever else you want to bring up, Bill.
All right, thank you.
So we'll be right back, folks, with our final segment. Call in, folks.
I love our callers.
Give us a call, 640-3091. So here we are. This is the final segment of this report for Wednesday, June 28th, our last show this month. And if you've been following us, you know we've had a very lively discussion with many good calls to generate, real value in that discussion. And we are very pleased to have Ward 10 Alderman Bill Berry with us. Distinguished career in law enforcement, many successes in solving some really cold cases. And we've been talking about the news in the last few days in the paper about it was a rape in a hallway at West High School almost 2 years ago. But if people want to call in about that, we will be glad to talk about it.
I want to keep the focus on as bad as that news of that sexual assault was. I really think that there was a very serious failure of leadership on the part of the administration.
No doubt somebody seriously dropped the ball on that.
And I don't think we're going to solve that problem today, but I as our caller said, I think somebody knows where the dog died, and that's going to come out at some point.
I certainly hope so. But Bill, there's other news involving the city, and I think them probably you
pretty
can tell me.
explosive stuff.
One of the most dramatic things is our fire chief, a great guy as far as I know, Dan Goonan, has announced because of budget limitations, he's going to be partially shutting down one of our fire stations on Califf Road and cutting the staffing at the fire station in your own ward on South Main Street.
Right.
From 4 to 3, and this is alarming. I think this is really alarming. Nothing more important to our safety in this city, our public safety, than
Now, the mayor,
prompt response by our firemen.
the mayor has
fire
said
people.
that he's going to use contingency funds to solve this problem.
Isn't that great that the aldermen had the courage enough to Pat Long? I'm going to tell you right now, Pat Long did an outstanding job. He scraped for every single penny that he could find that he could use to put into contingency. Because once you put it in contingency, you can use it for anything. Okay, and the unfortunate thing is, we needed $2 million for the schools. And I said it earlier, I have the utmost respect and the trust in Dr. Vargas. I think he's doing a fabulous job. He told us he needed $2 million. He not only told us he needed $2 million, it wasn't a black hole that we're going to send the $2 million to. He told us exactly, and he had it down on paper exactly to the penny where the money was going to spend.
Yep.
And part of it was overcrowding. Northwest Elementary School is one of them.
Sure.
He was going to hire additional teachers to solve or at least put a bite into the overcrowding at some of our schools, and then add health teachers and language teachers and reading teachers in our elementary schools, and the health teachers would be in the middle schools, which was just certainly needed. So we tried, was taking money out of economic development the best idea? We had to do something. We had to come up with some type of plan to get the $2 million over to school. That wasn't going to pass. We weren't going to have the votes for it. Our next option, and Alderman Sapienza came up with the idea of, well, if we're going to put, ended up being $3.1 million in contingency, that we could take the $2 million for the schools out of contingency and put it towards the schools, which leaves us with $1.1 million. We were hoping to have the 3.1 in there for specifically for the city side.
Yeah, for real contingencies
for the city side.
Exactly.
Yep. But our hands were tied, and that was the cards that we were dealt with to pass the budget. We wouldn't have been able to pass. And what would have happened if we didn't pass that budget, if we didn't have the votes, we would have ended up with the mayor's budget, which had zero money in contingency, zero money in severance. So that was the other option.
Not good option.
No, and we would have been in a bigger bind with that. I mean, the school wouldn't have received the $2 million, but we also wouldn't have had the money.
So the mayor's budget would not have covered it, but the mayor relies upon Alderman Long's budget, the contingencies that you guys managed to put in there. It's kind of funny,
it's a
isn't it?
savior.
It's ironic.
It's a savior,
Yeah.
and we had to override the tax cap to use the additional revenue to get to where we were in the contingency.
Well,
Okay.
we don't want
Let's
to
talk to
abuse our
Phil.
caller. Let's get Phil on the line.
Hi, Phil. You're welcome to join us. Progress report. Go right ahead.
Hey, Mike Farley.
Hey, Phil.
Hi, Phil.
How are you?
We're all doing well.
I'm well. How are you?
We're fine.
Good. Hey, to your point about, administration being responsible and blah, 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 about all these things that are going on. Just a couple of things. There have been teachers and principals yelling and screaming from the top of their lungs to the prior administration. Keep Dr. Vargas and his team out of it.
You're right.
To the prior administration of what's been going on in our schools.
No doubt.
And nothing was done. And nothing was done. And now I'm friends with both sides of the aisle. We've also been yelling and screaming to both sides of the aisle of what's been going on. And it was to a deaf ear. And all of a sudden it's a election cycle and a news item, and now it's a hot issue. To me, it's sickening that we would make this tragic incident, and in my estimation, I could be wrong, at least somewhat political. There's enough blame to go along from 0 to 100. So to put it on Teddy or the school board or the prior administration or the alderman or whoever is ridiculous. There's so much blame to go along, it's ridiculous.
But don't you agree the major thing is to make sure nothing like this happens again? This should be a teaching lesson.
But, yeah, right. But, and that sounds great. That's a great soundbite. But people like myself and the people I work with that see it every day, we've been talking about it for 2 years. And elected officials, whether in their state house or aldermanic seats or school board seats, weren't listening. And we've been telling you it's going to happen.
Yeah, and
Guess what? It's not an isolated incident.
well,
There's kids in the schools that shouldn't be there, and we keep saying it, and they need help, and we need help, and we need to protect the innocent. And it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden there's an election coming up, and there's a shot to take a shot at somebody, and we're going to re-victimize the victims.
well, how do you?
It's a hot issue.
Hold
I know,
on, hold
but
on,
Phil,
Phil.
how do you think that the city, whether it be the alderman, the school board, the school administration, how do you think that incident should have been handled back in 2015? And if you want to use, if you had
a
it,
great example. I'll give you a great example, Billy. A great example. And I've told you this privately and publicly. There should have been an alternative school setting for people that shouldn't be in the regular classrooms.
Phil,
I don't
you've
know
been
if
advocating that for years.
I don't know if this instance would have cured that, but I'll tell you this: it would have went a long way to having resources to monitor and manage the school building the proper way. But when you're overloaded with needy people and needy students, you can't keep an eye on every hallway. You're just overburdened. You're always in crisis management. You're always a MASH unit. And when we go to the alderman and we go to the school board, we don't get the support we need. But all of a sudden, it's in the courts and it's in the papers and it's in the news. Boy, somebody should have done something. Well, guess what? Brendan McCaffrey, Phil Sapienza, Pat O'Neill, we've been telling you guys that for years. We've been saying it's going to happen. We're not surprised. It happened.
Yeah.
Wake
Well-
up.
well,
Okay.
Nobody's hands are clean.
Phil-
Nobody's hands are clean.
Phil, we're here, I think, pretty much agreeing with you. I think here on the Progress Report for the past 8 years, we've been supporting education in Manchester, supporting teachers, supporting people like yourself who are on the front lines. What we're doing here tonight, I think you may be misreading our intent, or maybe we're not being articulate, but I don't think we're trying to politicize this, although there are political people who were in the position to do something at the time.
Mike, let's take a time out. I hate to interrupt you.
Sure, go
You
ahead.
don't even have to apologize to me. Your heart's in the right place. That's why you lost your election. You get it. You get it. You're fighting the fight. Here's my point. If we all get together and really talk about the issues and stop the finger pointing and work together, we can figure it out.
right, and that's
Maybe the
exactly.
school board shouldn't have health insurance, and we should have a resource officer in that hallway. How's that sound?
Well, there is a school resource officer in that school. My
Really?
understanding,
There's one, Billy? There's two at Central. Maybe
Well-
there should be 5.
Well, I agree, and believe me,
Wait, time out, Bill. Bill, there's not enough support, period. I don't want to get into the weeds of it. There's not enough support.
Well,
there's not enough special ed support. There's not enough.
I don't think you can have a
safety
resource in
support,
every hallway in
there's
every
not
school.
enough nursing
to the
support. There's
Manchester.
not enough administrative support. There's not enough assistant principals. There's not enough algebra teachers. There's not enough.
but I'll tell you,
Something like this is going to happen.
Phil,
it's
we're
going
right.
to happen anyway because it's life. But
but
when
Phil,
we don't take care of it, it's going to happen more often than it should.
But-
And now the fact that there is a victim, we should stop talking about it. We should just fix it. Do it behind closed doors, not on TV, not at meetings, not when I'm calling up. Do it behind closed doors because it needs to be fixed, but don't keep re-victimizing.
Yep.
Okay.
Phil, we got to let you go because we're out of time.
We got to wrap up the show, and we haven't even given Alderman Berry a chance to kind of make a
Make
closing
your response.
statement on it.
I'm trying to referee here a little bit.
I agree with Phil, but
Phil makes good
one thing
points.
he left out, and he's actually talking about it now, we need to communicate. That's what we needed to do back in September of 2015 is communication.
And I think that's the
It
point
didn't
we've been
have to
trying to
be
make
out in the
here.
open, but it had to. Communication should have been done back then.
Yeah.
All right, and that's the problem. All right, you can't. Absolutely, there's a victim, and you know what? There may be more victims out there. And that's what we have to deal with.
Yeah.
But the problem was that there was a lack of communication back in 2015 that it should have been handled totally different. And yes, are we working on it? I spoke with Dr. Vargas today, and we are coming up with a plan because I asked him if it was possible for, at the very least, the alderman in that ward or in that school district be notified if of any major incident. Doesn't have to be public, but we should be notified.
I think we can all agree with that, and we're glad you're there to, with your expertise and a good record as a very effective law enforcement person.
And we are Monday morning quarterbacking.
And we
so,
are
I
Monday
mean,
morning
we get it.
quarterbacks.
And I can see his point. Brendan McCafferty, who's the principal at Hillside, is doing an awesome job. Amy Allen at Parker Valley, awesome job. All the principals in our school district are doing a great job. The teachers are doing a great job. They're frustrated because they're not getting the backing of the school
you
board.
can hear it,
They're
can't
not
you?
getting the backing of the alderman. I'm on the special committee, the joint committee with the 3 school board members and the 3 aldermen. I love being on that committee because now we're communicating. And that's what we need to do. Brendan McCafferty, Billy Krantz, other principals have come to our meetings, and they've been able to speak and talk to us about it. They're happy that we're finally sitting down and communicating.
Well, unfortunately,
There we go.
like all of
That's
our
a-
hours, this one's passed too quickly.
That's a good ending statement. We're
Yep.
glad you're serving our city as an alderman, Bill, and doing all the things you're doing, and we're very, very, very glad to have your service. And that's going to be it. We will be no show next week because it's the 4th of July holiday, and there's no taping next week. We'll be back the week after that. I think we're doing a show on
No,
historic.
well, we don't know what that show's going to be. The following week, we'll do a historic show.
Okay. So we'll be back the week after next with another edition of the Progress Report. Thank you to our callers. It was just
Yes,
a lively
thank you.
show. We appreciate it. A lot of stuff we didn't get to, but we'll try to do it at another time.